What does it take to rise from a life full of challenges to become a legend the world admires? Could you turn every obstacle into your stage? From the streets of Mount Vernon, New York, to the dazzling lights of Hollywood, Denzel Washington's journey wasn't handed to him. It was fought for, step by step. Every setback, every no, every moment of doubt shaped the man we know today. And his story shows us that greatness isn't just talent, it's resilience, belief, and relentless effort. Denzel grew up in a world where opportunities were scarce and expectations were low. School wasn't easy, and life at home demanded responsibility far beyond his years. But even as the world whispered, "You can't," Denzel refused to listen. He discovered his passion for acting, not in glamorous theaters, but in small school plays and local productions. Every audition that ended in rejection became fuel. Every role he almost lost became a lesson in persistence. He studied hard, trained relentlessly, and carried a belief stronger than fear itself. Eventually, his dedication opened doors, first to small TV roles, then to breakthrough performances that left audiences in awe. But what made Denzel truly remarkable wasn't fame. It was the courage to remain disciplined, to honor his craft, and to use his success to inspire others. Denzel's journey reminds us that no matter where you start, no matter how many obstacles block your path, your story can become extraordinary if you refuse to give up. Denzel Washington's story begins in the worn streets of Mount Vernon, New York, a neighborhood where every corner told a story of struggle, resilience, and hope. The morning sun rose slowly over the faded buildings, illuminating cracked sidewalks and chipped paint on the houses, each one carrying silent testimonies of lives lived in perseverance. Children's laughter echoed through the alleys, but behind the playful sounds was a subtle weight of reality. Life here demanded toughness, awareness, and a determination far beyond their years. For Denzel, growing up meant learning responsibility early, understanding limitations, and finding strength in small victories. The first day of school brought a mix of excitement and anxiety. Teachers emphasized discipline, hard work, and ambition. But for Denzel, those weren't just classroom lessons, they were survival tools. Every completed assignment, every well-rehearsed recitation, every small acknowledgement became building blocks of confidence. The streets of Mount Vernon taught him as much as any school. A perfectly solved math problem felt like triumph. A small performance in class felt like a step toward something bigger. He learned early that success was never handed to anyone. It had to be earned. Outside the classroom, the streets were alive with lessons of their own. Denzel and his friends played in alleys, parks, and open lots. Yet the shadows of limited opportunities and subtle prejudices were never far away. Broken street lights, graffiti, and crumbling walls reminded them that life wasn't perfect. But these weren't discouragements. They were silent challenges, teaching Denzel resilience. He began understanding that perseverance isn't just a word. It's an action, a mindset, a habit. At home, life was simple but grounded in values. His parents emphasized education, integrity, and discipline. Dinner table conversations often revolved around life's struggles and how to overcome them. Through his father's firmness and his mother's warmth, Denzel learned a balance of strength and compassion. He realized early that life's real tests weren't just academic. They were moral, emotional, and character-driven. Even in these humble surroundings, Denzel discovered imagination and storytelling. Limited resources never limited creativity. He observed the world around him, the way shadows fell, neighbors moved, and laughter echoed. Every detail became a story in his mind, an exercise in empathy and observation that would later define his acting career. At night, Denzel would dream. Not just ordinary dreams, but visions of a life beyond the streets of Mount Vernon. Even when the odds seemed impossible, he silently promised himself, "I will rise. I will become more than this neighborhood thinks I am." That quiet determination ignited a fire inside him, a relentless drive to succeed, not just for fame, but to prove that potential could never be measured by one's environment. Mount Vernon was tough, but it was the perfect classroom. Each challenge, from peer pressure to societal limits, became a lesson in resilience. These early experiences shaped Denzel's core, focused, determined, emotionally aware. From these streets came a young boy with dreams too large for the small world around him, a boy who understood that greatness begins with belief in oneself, no matter the circumstances. This was just the beginning. From the worn streets and humble beginnings, Denzel Washington's journey had started, one fueled by hope, guided by discipline, and destined to inspire generations. School for Denzel Washington was more than just a place to learn math and reading. It was a proving ground, a stage where every interaction tested his character and determination. The hallways of his school echoed with the chatter of classmates, some teasing, some indifferent, and some quietly supportive. Denzel quickly learned that life wasn't always fair, even inside these walls. Teachers had high expectations, parents hoped for excellence, and peers sometimes doubted his abilities. Yet, every day brought him a new opportunity to rise above the challenges, to turn criticism into fuel, and to transform small victories into confidence. Even at a young age, Denzel was fiercely observant. He watched the world carefully, noting the dynamics of people, the subtleties of behavior, the unspoken rules of success and survival. He realized that talent alone wasn't enough. Discipline, preparation, and resilience were equally important. In class, he often stayed late to perfect an assignment or memorize lines for a school play. His peers might have seen a boy practicing endlessly, but Denzel knew he was crafting the habits that would shape his future. Not everything was smooth. Denzel faced the sting of failure, the pain of being overlooked, and the frustration of limitations. Sometimes the neighborhood and school environment seemed to conspire against him. Resources were limited, opportunities were few, and expectations were often low. But rather than succumbing to self-doubt, Denzel used these challenges as a mirror, reflecting on his weaknesses, and then methodically working to turn them into strengths. Every rejection in school became a lesson in perseverance. Every minor embarrassment a chance to build confidence and poise. Family support played a critical role during these formative years. Conversations at the dinner table often revolved around integrity, responsibility, and the importance of education. His father, with a steady voice and firm expectations, instilled discipline, while his mother, with warmth and encouragement, nurtured belief in himself. These early lessons shaped Denzel's understanding of balance, the importance of working hard while maintaining compassion, and striving for excellence without compromising values. Extracurricular activities became a sanctuary for young Denzel. School plays, local performances, and recitations offered him glimpses of a world where he could express himself fully. Acting wasn't just a hobby. It was a way to channel emotion, to explore empathy, and to understand human behavior. Each performance, no matter how small, strengthened his presence, his voice, and his understanding of storytelling. Even when the audience was tiny or the applause modest, Denzel treated every opportunity as a professional stage, preparing for something far bigger. Through all of this, Denzel's self-awareness grew. He recognized early that talent would not automatically guarantee success. He began to internalize the principles of persistence, focus, and adaptability. School was not simply a place for academic growth. It was a rehearsal for life stage, a place where every challenge, every interaction, every lesson became part of the script for his future achievements. As the days passed, small successes compounded. A perfectly delivered line in a classroom presentation, an insightful answer to a question, a nod of approval from a teacher. These seemingly minor moments cemented his belief in himself. They became the foundation of an inner resilience that would carry him through far greater challenges in the years ahead. Mount Vernon had tested him, school had refined him, and family had anchored him. By the time Denzel walked home each evening, he carried with him more than books and assignments. He carried determination, awareness, and an emerging vision of the life he intended to create. This period of schooling was about planting seeds, habits, discipline, and confidence that would later grow into the extraordinary career and influence of Denzel Washington. The stage was set, the spark had been lit, and while most of his classmates were navigating ordinary paths, Denzel was quietly building an extraordinary future, step by step, lesson by lesson, dream by dream. It was during one of those ordinary school days that Denzel first felt the unmistakable spark of something extraordinary. The auditorium smelled faintly of polished wood and old paint, a scent that seemed to carry both history and promise. The stage was small, modest, and unassuming, but to Denzel, it was as if the entire world had been condensed into that narrow strip of light. That day, the teacher announced a school play, a minor performance to showcase students' talents. Many of Denzel's classmates groaned at the thought, but he felt a strange, magnetic pull toward the stage. It was as if he instinctively knew that this was where he could speak without restraint, where he could express feelings beyond words. The first rehearsal was awkward, full of stumbles, forgotten lines, and hesitant movements. Denzel observed everything: the expressions on other children's faces, the nuances of tone, the subtlety of timing. And while some of the other students grew frustrated or distracted, Denzel felt alive in a way he had never experienced before. He could see the power in storytelling, the ability to transport an audience with nothing but voice, body, and emotion. For the first time, he realized that performance was not just entertainment. It was connection, understanding, and transformation. At home that evening, he replayed the day in his mind endlessly. Every gesture, every line, every nuance seemed monumental. His parents noticed the gleam in his eyes, the excitement that refused to be contained. His father, ever practical, reminded him of the importance of focus and discipline, while his mother, recognizing the intensity of his curiosity, encouraged him to explore it further. That night, Denzel began practicing lines alone in his room, imagining audiences far beyond Mount Vernon, imagining stages he had yet to see, and slowly learning the value of preparation and commitment. Over the next few weeks, acting became more than just a school activity. It became a form of self-expression, a safe space where he could channel both joy and frustration, hope and fear. Denzel would watch films with meticulous attention, studying the actors, the delivery, the pacing, and the emotions. He noticed subtleties that others overlooked: the way an actor's eyes could convey 1,000 words, the way body language carried truth beyond dialogue. Every movie became a masterclass, every role a lesson, and every scene a template for the dedication he would soon demand of himself. The spark of passion did not exist in isolation. Denzel began to understand that talent alone was not enough. The streets of Mount Vernon, the classroom challenges, and family guidance had taught him discipline. Now, acting taught him focus, patience, and empathy. He practiced relentlessly, sometimes alone in his room, sometimes in front of mirrors, and sometimes for the small audiences of classmates and family members. Each rehearsal brought with it a mix of exhilaration and anxiety, but more importantly, each rehearsal strengthened his resolve. Peers and teachers began to notice his intensity. He delivered lines with an authenticity that made listeners pause, a maturity beyond his years. Even minor roles were approached with meticulous attention. Every gesture, every inflection, every glance meticulously crafted. This attention to detail, cultivated from observing life itself, became a hallmark of his emerging artistry. Small victories, such as positive feedback from teachers or applause from classmates, reinforced a growing belief: he was meant for more than ordinary pursuits. Beyond the technicalities of performance, Denzel discovered a profound truth. Acting was about understanding humanity. Every character he played, every emotion he conveyed, was a reflection of life's complexities, the struggles, hopes, fears, and triumphs of the human spirit. This realization transformed his approach. Performance was no longer about imitation, but about connection, authenticity, and conveying truth to those who watched. By the end of that school year, the spark that had begun in a modest auditorium had ignited into a quiet flame of ambition. Denzel no longer saw acting as a mere pastime. It had become a lens through which he viewed the world, a vehicle for growth, understanding, and eventual excellence. From the humble beginnings in Mount Vernon, the first flicker of passion had taken root, and with it, a lifelong commitment to mastery, resilience, and storytelling. Little did anyone know that this young boy, inspired by a small school play, was beginning a journey that would one day lead him to stages and screens worldwide. That spark, born in a simple auditorium, was the first step in a lifetime of dedication, excellence, and unwavering pursuit of dreams that seemed impossible to many, but achievable for Denzel Washington. After discovering the spark of acting, Denzel began immersing himself in every small opportunity to perform. Local school plays, community events, and modest neighborhood performances became his training ground. Each stage, no matter how small, was treated with the seriousness of a Broadway production in his eyes. He understood that greatness wasn't about the size of the audience. It was about the depth of preparation, the authenticity of performance, and the courage to fully inhabit a role. In one particular local production, Denzel was cast in a supporting role. Though minor in lines, he approached it with meticulous attention. He memorized every word, every gesture, every pause, rehearsing alone late into the evening. He observed the lead actors, noting their expressions, timing, and delivery. By the time the performance night arrived, Denzel's portrayal carried a maturity and subtlety that surprised even the teachers. The applause he received was not just encouragement. It was a quiet confirmation that his dedication could transcend circumstance. Mount Vernon, with all its limitations, became a laboratory for learning life's lessons. The streets, sometimes rough and uninviting, were also a place for observing humanity, neighbors' struggles, parents' sacrifices, children's resilience. Denzel absorbed it all, translating observation into empathy. When he stepped onto a stage, he wasn't just reciting lines. He was channeling real human experiences, conveying emotions that resonated beyond the script. Even in a small gymnasium packed with family and neighbors, he realized the transformative power of performance, to inspire, to reflect truth, and to connect. Each performance also brought him face to face with nerves, doubt, and imperfection. Sometimes he forgot lines, stumbled through gestures, or felt out of place among peers. But instead of deterring him, these challenges became lessons in humility and perseverance. Denzel learned to embrace mistakes as opportunities, to refine technique, and to turn discomfort into presence. Every small stage performance added layers to his confidence, building the foundation for the commanding presence he would later carry on national and international stages. His parents noticed a change in him. Denzel's mother often reminded him, "Talent without discipline is just wasted potential." His father's steady presence reinforced the importance of persistence, attention to detail, and accountability. These lessons, combined with the raw experiences on stage and in the streets, forged a young boy who was disciplined yet creative, ambitious yet grounded. Over time, word spread about his dedication. Teachers and neighbors began to recognize a spark, an intensity that went beyond typical childhood enthusiasm. Denzel became known not just as a talented student, but as someone who lived and breathed performance, someone whose focus and commitment set him apart. Even minor recognition felt monumental because he knew it was earned, not given. Through these small performances, Denzel learned another critical lesson. Every opportunity, no matter how small, matters. Success is often the accumulation of countless unseen efforts, the silent repetitions of lines, the late-night rehearsals, the meticulous study of human behavior. The applause, the recognition, or the small moments of triumph were just external signs of something deeper, a relentless inner commitment to excellence. By the end of these local performances, Denzel was no longer just a boy playing roles. He was a young storyteller, a student of life, a practitioner of empathy and presence. Each performance refined not only his skills, but also his understanding of human emotion, patience, and perseverance. And though he was still far from the national stages and Hollywood lights, the roots of his extraordinary future had already begun to intertwine with every small stage he graced, every line he mastered, and every lesson he absorbed from both life and performance. Mount Vernon's humble stages had given Denzel a canvas, but it was his relentless drive, observation, and discipline that began painting the portrait of a future star, someone who would one day redefine excellence and inspire millions through dedication, talent, and an unyielding spirit. No journey worth taking is without setbacks, and for young Denzel, rejection quickly became a recurring companion. Even with talent, dedication, and relentless practice, opportunities were scarce, and recognition was not guaranteed. Whether it was a coveted lead in a school play, a role in a community performance, or simply acknowledgement from teachers, Denzel often faced doors closed in his face. The sting of rejection could have been crushing, but instead, it became a teacher, shaping his resilience and determination. After one particularly discouraging experience, where he had prepared for weeks for a central role only to be overlooked, Denzel returned home silently, fighting the mix of frustration, disappointment, and self-doubt. Mount Vernon's streets, familiar yet unforgiving, seemed to mirror his inner turmoil. He passed worn-down sidewalks, cracked streetlights, and neighbors hurrying by, and in that solitude, he learned to confront failure directly. Rather than complaining or giving up, he asked himself the crucial question: what can I do differently? How can I improve? This reflection, even at a young age, was the foundation of his relentless work ethic. Family again played a pivotal role. His father, firm yet supportive, reminded him, "Denzel, nobody owes you anything. You earn everything. Rejection isn't the end, it's feedback." His mother's gentle encouragement reinforced his self-belief. "Your path isn't measured by others' approval. It's measured by how hard you're willing to work for your dreams." These words became a mantra he would carry throughout his life, grounding him during moments when failure felt overwhelming. Denzel also began to see the bigger picture. Rejection was not a reflection of his worth, but a challenge to grow stronger, smarter, and more resilient. Each disappointment became an opportunity to refine his craft, memorizing lines more thoroughly, observing human behavior more acutely, and pushing his emotional depth beyond the obvious. He understood that the path to excellence is rarely smooth. It is a series of trials that test not just talent, but character, patience, and perseverance. School and community performances continued, but now each audition and role came with a heightened sense of purpose. He treated every small setback as an essential step in his journey. When he was overlooked again for a role he had deeply desired, instead of sulking, he doubled down, rehearsing longer hours and perfecting subtleties in delivery that he hadn't noticed before. Slowly, those who once dismissed him began to take notice, not just of his skill, but of his commitment, his focus, and his unwavering drive. Even peers, who once underestimated him, began to respect the quiet intensity he brought to every rehearsal and performance. Denzel realized early that resilience was more powerful than talent alone. Talent could open doors, but resilience could keep them open, even when the world tried to shut them. He discovered that rejection, rather than a barrier, was a forge, shaping him, strengthening him, and preparing him for the challenges of life beyond Mount Vernon. By the end of these early experiences with rejection, Denzel's mindset had shifted. Fear of failure no longer dominated him. Instead, it became fuel. Each rejection reinforced his resolve, proving to him that greatness required patience, persistence, and an unwavering belief in oneself. Even in the face of repeated setbacks, the young boy from Mount Vernon carried a quiet certainty that his time would come, that the world would eventually recognize not just his talent, but his relentless heart and discipline. Through the crucible of rejection, Denzel learned one of the most essential lessons of his life. Failure is temporary, but the habits you build, the resilience you cultivate, and the courage you carry are permanent. And so, each no became a stepping stone, guiding him closer to the extraordinary life he was destined to lead. By the time Denzel Washington reached his early teens, it was no longer enough to rely solely on natural talent or the occasional spark of inspiration. He realized that if he wanted to rise above his environment and fulfill his dreams, he would have to commit himself fully to the craft of acting. Every afternoon, after school, he devoted hours to rehearsal, observation, and study. Whether it was a mirror in his bedroom, an empty classroom, or a quiet corner of the library, Denzel treated every space as a stage, every audience as an opportunity to hone his skills. Mount Vernon streets, though rough and limiting, became an extension of his classroom. He observed the people around him, their movements, expressions, and conversations, and translated these observations into his performances. Each passerby, each neighbor, each family interaction was a lesson in authenticity and human behavior. Acting for Denzel became not just about memorizing lines, but about understanding life itself. He approached every small school role with the seriousness of a professional, dissecting scripts, experimenting with voice modulation, studying body language, and internalizing emotions beyond his years. Discipline became his foundation. Denzel maintained meticulous routines, balancing schoolwork, family responsibilities, and rigorous practice. Even when discouraged or tired, he refused to cut corners. His mother noticed the intensity with which he pursued his craft and encouraged him, offering gentle reminders that passion must be matched with patience. His father, meanwhile, instilled the importance of accountability, emphasizing that talent alone would never be enough to achieve greatness. Together, these lessons shaped a young man who understood that preparation and effort were as crucial as ability. Denzel's dedication extended beyond rehearsals. He watched films repeatedly, analyzing the performances of great actors, absorbing the subtle nuances of tone, gesture, and presence. He noticed the way accomplished performers conveyed emotion through silence, how tension could be built with a look, and how storytelling was often more than words. It was rhythm, timing, and connection. Each viewing became a masterclass, a study in craft, and a blueprint for the discipline he would soon demand of himself in every performance. Even minor performances were approached with an intensity that surprised his teachers and peers. He memorized scripts with precision, practiced until gestures felt natural, and ensured that every emotion he portrayed carried depth and authenticity. This commitment was not motivated by recognition or applause. It was driven by an inner standard of excellence, a promise to himself that mediocrity would never define him. Through consistent practice, Denzel also began to develop resilience in the face of imperfection. Mistakes were no longer discouraging. They were opportunities to refine technique and strengthen character. Every faltered line, every missed gesture, became part of the learning process, a step toward mastery. The young boy from Mount Vernon was learning an invaluable lesson. Excellence is built on repetition, patience, and the courage to face shortcomings head-on. By this stage, acting had transformed from a pastime into a disciplined pursuit, a central focus of his young life. Denzel understood that his craft required not only talent and passion, but a structured approach, tireless practice, and unwavering dedication. It was a preparation for the challenges ahead, a foundation for the extraordinary career he would one day build. Mount Vernon may have been humble, but within its streets and small stages, Denzel was cultivating a habit that would define him: relentless dedication to craft. Through this commitment, he began shaping not just performances, but character, an enduring blend of skill, discipline, and emotional intelligence that would propel him toward his destiny. Every day, every rehearsal, every observation became another brick in the foundation of excellence. By committing fully to his training in craft, Denzel Washington was no longer just a talented boy. He was an architect of his future, building a life that would one day inspire millions. Even with talent, dedication, and a growing skill set, self-doubt is an unavoidable companion on the path to greatness. For young Denzel Washington, moments of insecurity crept in quietly, often in the middle of a rehearsal or before a performance. The question, "Am I really good enough?" whispered in his mind. The streets of Mount Vernon, though familiar, carried their own pressures, the weight of expectations, the awareness of limited opportunities, and the constant comparison to peers who seemed to succeed more easily. But Denzel refused to let these doubts define him. He learned early that self-doubt is not a weakness. It is a signal, a challenge to grow stronger. When anxiety struck before a performance, he practiced deep focus, imagining the audience as supportive allies rather than critics. He reminded himself that preparation was his shield and effort his armor. Each line memorized, each gesture perfected, became proof that he could rise above fear. Slowly, he began to see self-doubt not as an enemy, but as a catalyst for deeper focus and resilience. Family support was essential during these moments. His mother, sensing his quiet anxieties, would say, "It's okay to feel unsure, but never let that stop you from trying. Courage is acting even when you're afraid." His father, ever disciplined, added, "Confidence comes from hard work. The more you prepare, the less the doubt matters." These words didn't magically erase fear. They gave him a framework to confront it, to channel nervous energy into performance, and to turn hesitation into determination. Denzel also discovered the power of visualization. Before stepping on stage, he would picture success, the clarity of his voice, the precision of his movements, and the emotional truth in his performance. By imagining excellence, he built mental resilience, reinforcing the belief that he could rise to any challenge. Gradually, moments of self-doubt became manageable, and even motivational. They reminded him to prepare more thoroughly, observe more deeply, and act with authenticity. Peer feedback played a role too. Sometimes classmates criticized or underestimated him. Instead of reacting with frustration, Denzel observed and reflected. Every comment, every critique, became an opportunity to learn. He realized that self-doubt often comes from internalizing others' opinions. By anchoring his confidence in preparation, discipline, and self-awareness, he learned to rise above judgment and focus on growth. Over time, these lessons created an inner fortitude that defined Denzel's character. He understood that doubt would never vanish entirely, but mastery comes from moving forward despite it. Every small triumph, delivering lines flawlessly, commanding attention in a small auditorium, earning quiet acknowledgement from peers and teachers, reinforced his self-belief. He began to internalize an essential truth. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the willingness to act in spite of it. By the end of this stage in his childhood, Denzel had transformed self-doubt into fuel. Each uncertainty became a stepping stone. Each nervous thought a reminder to prepare, practice, and perform with integrity. The streets of Mount Vernon, the small stages, the mirrors in his room, they were all arenas where he practiced overcoming fear. And in doing so, he was laying the foundation for a career defined not just by talent, but by relentless courage, discipline, and belief in himself. Mount Vernon may have challenged him, peers may have doubted him, and his own mind may have questioned him. But Denzel Washington learned early that greatness begins with a decision to act despite fear. By confronting self-doubt head-on, he cultivated a resilience that would carry him through decades of challenges, setbacks, and triumphs on the path to becoming one of the world's most celebrated actors. After years of honing his craft in school plays, local performances, and countless hours of personal practice, Denzel Washington finally encountered his first breakthrough opportunity. It wasn't a blockbuster film or a national stage. It was a television role that would begin to signal the world that a remarkable talent was emerging from Mount Vernon. The casting call itself was intimidating, held in a cramped studio far from the familiar streets he knew so well. Yet Denzel approached it with the same meticulous preparation that had guided him since childhood. He studied the script line by line, analyzing character motivations, emotional beats, and subtle gestures. He rehearsed relentlessly, visualizing the camera as an audience, imagining the nuances of performance required for this new medium. Unlike stage acting, television demanded a different kind of precision, the ability to convey authenticity in close-up, the importance of timing, and the subtlety of expression under the scrutiny of the camera. For Denzel, it was a challenge he met with focus and determination. On audition day, nerves surged, but he anchored himself in discipline and preparation. He recalled lessons from the streets of Mount Vernon, his family's guidance, and countless hours spent perfecting craft in solitude. As he performed, there was a quiet intensity that drew the casting director's attention. Not just a talented child, but someone with presence, commitment, and emotional depth beyond his years. When the call came that he had landed the role, it was both exhilarating and humbling. This small victory was proof that preparation, perseverance, and faith in oneself could transform potential into opportunity. The television set became a new classroom. Denzel observed professional actors, learning from their timing, expressions, and interactions. Each day on set taught him lessons that no school or neighborhood stage could offer. The importance of patience, the discipline required for multiple takes, and the subtle power of collaboration. He embraced every challenge, from remembering blocking cues to delivering lines with emotional authenticity, internalizing each experience as part of a lifelong education in acting. Even as recognition grew, Denzel remained grounded. He remembered the streets that had shaped him, the classrooms where he had first practiced, and the countless nights of self-rehearsal. The breakthrough role was not an endpoint. It was a stepping stone, a validation of years of persistence, and a reminder that hard work and discipline could open doors that once seemed locked. Mount Vernon's lessons, resilience, observation, discipline, and empathy continued to guide him. Every scene he performed carried the weight of preparation, the depth of observation, and the authenticity of his experience. This early television role wasn't just a credit on a resume. It was the embodiment of everything Denzel had learned, that excellence requires preparation, patience, and an unwavering belief in oneself, no matter the circumstances. By the time he left the set each day, Denzel had absorbed more than lines and cues. He had internalized the workings of professional performance, the demands of precision, and the subtle art of connecting with an audience. The breakthrough role was not just a career milestone. It was a formative experience, confirming that his years of discipline, observation, and relentless effort had prepared him for a life on screen. Mount Vernon, his family, and his early performances had given him the tools. This first television role allowed him to wield them. It was a small stage, yes, but a critical one, a platform where talent, preparation, and perseverance converged, laying the foundation for the extraordinary trajectory that would soon follow. Denzel Washington's journey had begun to touch a broader world, and the spark that had first ignited in childhood was now burning brighter than ever, illuminating a path toward greatness. Even as Denzel Washington's early career began to take shape, he quickly realized that talent and hard work alone weren't enough. The path to excellence required guidance, perspective, and mentorship from those who had navigated the world he aspired to conquer. In Mount Vernon and beyond, he encountered individuals, teachers, directors, and family friends, who saw not just potential, but raw brilliance waiting to be molded. These mentors became essential pillars in his development, shaping not only his craft but his understanding of life, discipline, and responsibility. One of his early mentors was a high school drama teacher who recognized the young boy's intensity and commitment. She pushed Denzel to explore emotional depth, to take risks on stage, and to confront vulnerability as a strength rather than a weakness. Her guidance was unwavering yet patient, emphasizing that acting was more than memorization. It was about truth, connection, and authenticity. Through her mentorship, Denzel began to see acting as a sacred responsibility. Every performance was an opportunity to reflect humanity, to illuminate emotions, and to inspire others. Mentorship wasn't limited to formal instruction. Observing seasoned actors on set, absorbing their professionalism, their timing, their humility despite talent, offered Denzel invaluable lessons. He learned that greatness is not just about delivering lines or hitting marks. It's about presence, empathy, and consistency. Watching someone navigate mistakes, adjust under pressure, and remain composed in challenging circumstances gave him a blueprint for resilience, focus, and grace under scrutiny. Family continued to serve as his primary guide. Even as his talents grew, his parents reminded him that recognition and opportunity were transient. Character, integrity, and discipline were permanent. His father's lessons on accountability and effort, combined with his mother's encouragement to remain authentic and compassionate, became guiding principles. Denzel internalized the truth that mentorship can provide insight and direction, but ultimately, growth depends on personal commitment, reflection, and humility. Through this network of mentors, Denzel learned the value of listening more than speaking, observing more than acting, and studying more than performing. Each piece of guidance, whether a critique on a performance, a life lesson about perseverance, or advice on navigating setbacks, was treated as gold. He understood that the accumulation of wisdom, often delivered quietly and patiently, was a resource that could never be replaced. Mentorship also introduced Denzel to a sense of accountability beyond himself. He realized that as talent grew, so did responsibility, not only to his craft but to those who invested in him, to the communities he represented, and to the broader world he hoped to reach. Every note of advice, every observation, and every corrective suggestion became part of his internal compass, guiding him toward excellence with humility. By embracing mentorship, Denzel Washington expanded his vision. The small stages and streets of Mount Vernon had taught him perseverance. The breakthrough role had validated his skill. But mentors offered perspective, refinement, and a roadmap for sustained growth. Through their guidance, he understood that greatness is rarely achieved alone. It requires the wisdom, encouragement, and sometimes tough love of those who have walked the path before. As Part 9 closes, the young boy from Mount Vernon was no longer navigating his journey blindly. He had mentors, role models, and a growing awareness of the principles that underpin excellence. With every lesson absorbed, he inched closer to the extraordinary destiny that awaited him, one built on discipline, insight, and the courage to embrace both opportunity and challenge with equal intensity. After years of relentless effort, discipline, and countless small performances, Denzel Washington began to experience the first tangible rewards of his dedication. Recognition, though modest at first, was profoundly validating. Local theater awards, school accolades, and community acknowledgments became more than just symbols. They were confirmations that his talent, combined with perseverance, was making an impact. These early honors were reminders that hard work, no matter how humble the stage or audience, is always noticed by those who pay attention. The first award ceremony was a moment etched in Denzel's memory. The auditorium was packed with parents, teachers, and neighbors, the air thick with anticipation and quiet chatter. When his name was called, a wave of emotion surged through him, pride, disbelief, and gratitude mingling in a powerful current. Walking to the stage, he felt the culmination of countless hours of practice, observation, and self-discipline. The applause that greeted him was more than a public acknowledgement. It was a personal validation of years spent overcoming self-doubt, rejection, and countless obstacles. Receiving the award was humbling. Denzel understood that recognition, while gratifying, was not the ultimate goal. It was a reflection of effort, discipline, and consistency. It reminded him that each line delivered, each gesture perfected, and every rehearsal conducted with sincerity and focus contributed to something greater. The accolades reinforced the importance of preparation, attention to detail, and emotional authenticity, values that would guide his career for decades. Alongside the awards came invitations to more challenging roles. Directors and teachers began to see him as a reliable, disciplined, and gifted performer. Each opportunity presented new lessons, more complex characters, longer scripts, and subtler emotional layers. Denzel embraced these challenges eagerly, understanding that recognition carries responsibility. The acknowledgement of talent must be matched with the continuous pursuit of improvement, humility, and dedication. Family pride was palpable. His parents, who had nurtured his early curiosity and disciplined his growing ambition, saw the young boy's efforts come to fruition. Their pride, however, was always balanced with reminders. Success is temporary, and character, discipline, and perseverance are enduring. Denzel absorbed these lessons, realizing that awards are milestones, not destinations, and that true excellence is cultivated through consistent effort, reflection, and growth. Even within the applause and recognition, Denzel remained focused on the work itself. He understood that accolades were external affirmations, but the internal satisfaction derived from mastering a craft. Telling a story authentically and connecting with an audience was far more meaningful. Each small award strengthened his commitment, not his ego, and fueled his drive to explore more challenging and transformative roles. By the end of this period, Denzel's early recognition was more than a personal achievement. It was evidence that discipline, perseverance, and relentless dedication to craft yield tangible results. The small stages of Mount Vernon had prepared him for the spotlight, but it was his consistent effort, resilience, and commitment that allowed him to step into it with authenticity, confidence, and emotional depth. These early awards and acknowledgments were the first glimmers of a future that seemed both distant and inevitable. For Denzel Washington, they were not the culmination of his journey, but the foundation, a reminder that talent paired with hard work, discipline, and integrity could transform humble beginnings into extraordinary possibilities. After earning recognition through television and local awards, Denzel Washington faced a pivotal moment. The transition from small stages and television sets to the expansive, demanding world of film. This shift was both exhilarating and daunting. Unlike school plays or TV appearances, film required meticulous attention to subtlety, presence, and nuance. The camera captured everything, the slightest hesitation, the smallest flicker of emotion, leaving no room for error or improvisation. For Denzel, This transition demanded both courage and discipline. The first auditions for film roles were nerve-wracking. He entered studios filled with established actors and seasoned directors, each audition a high-stakes test of skill, preparation, and authenticity. Denzel approached each with the same intensity that had guided him through years of local performances. He studied the scripts meticulously, researched character backgrounds, and visualized the emotional depth required. Each audition became an opportunity to prove not just talent, but resilience, focus, and the ability to embody humanity on screen. Landing the first role was a quiet triumph, one that brought both excitement and pressure. The set was vastly different from the familiar confines of Mount Vernon. Lights, cameras, and the presence of crew members and fellow actors created an environment that demanded precision and professionalism. Denzel quickly adapted, observing and absorbing the rhythms of film production. Every take became a lesson in patience and persistence, as directors demanded multiple iterations to capture the perfect shot. He learned to maintain emotional authenticity despite repetition, a skill that would become central to his future success. Mentorship played a crucial role during this period. Experienced actors on set offered guidance on voice modulation, subtle expressions, and presence. Denzel absorbed these lessons with humility and curiosity, understanding that film required a blend of technical skill and emotional depth. He began to appreciate that mastery of acting is a continuous journey, one that demands observation, adaptability, and a commitment to growth at every stage. The transition to film also revealed the broader challenges of the entertainment industry. Competition was fierce, opportunities were limited, and the stakes were higher than ever. Yet, Denzel's years of preparation, discipline, and resilience provided a foundation to navigate these challenges. Each scene, each line, and each interaction on set reinforced the value of his early experiences in Mount Vernon. The observation of human behavior, the hours of rehearsal, and the discipline instilled by family and mentors. Film also allowed Denzel to explore the complexities of human emotion on a scale he had never experienced. Characters were multidimensional, narratives layered with moral dilemmas and emotional intensity. Every performance demanded introspection and vulnerability. Through these roles, Denzel honed the ability to inhabit diverse experiences, to empathize deeply, and to convey authenticity in every gesture and expression. By the end of this transition, Denzel had begun to establish himself not just as a talented actor, but as a disciplined professional capable of navigating the intricate demands of film. The foundation laid in Mount Vernon, resilience, preparation, observation, and mentorship, proved invaluable. Each small stage, each local performance, each television appearance had been training for this moment. The transition to film marked a significant turning point. The young boy from Mount Vernon was now stepping into a larger world, ready to translate years of preparation into performances that could captivate, inspire, and transform audiences. The journey from humble beginnings to cinematic presence had begun in earnest, and every challenge faced, every lesson learned, was now part of the story that would define Denzel Washington's extraordinary career. Stepping into the film industry brought Denzel Washington face-to-face with challenges far beyond what Mount Vernon's small stages or early television sets had prepared him for. The world of film was a complex ecosystem filled with high expectations, cutthroat competition, and an unrelenting demand for excellence. Even with talent, preparation, and discipline, the industry had its own tests, rejections, misjudgments, and obstacles that could easily deter even the most determined young actor. One of the earliest and most formidable challenges was the subtle bias and stereotyping prevalent in casting. Despite his undeniable talent, Denzel encountered roles limited by narrow expectations. He was often considered for typecast characters, roles that did not fully reflect the depth and versatility he knew he could bring. This limitation could have crushed his spirit, but instead, it reinforced his resolve. He realized early that the fight was not just for opportunity. It was for respect, for the chance to tell stories that mattered, and to challenge perceptions. Rejections on the casting floor were frequent and sometimes blunt. Directors, producers, or casting agents would dismiss him quickly, focusing on superficial criteria rather than his skill. Yet, Denzel viewed each rejection as feedback, a subtle nudge to refine, to prepare more thoroughly, and to understand the nuances of the business. He treated these setbacks not as personal failures, but as opportunities to grow, learning to navigate not only the art of acting, but also the realities of an industry governed by perception, timing, and persistence. Financial constraints and resource limitations also posed significant hurdles. Unlike peers who had support or connections, Denzel relied on his own determination, modest family resources, and the lessons of discipline instilled since childhood. He learned to make every rehearsal, every audition, and every performance count, understanding that preparation often trumped privilege. Even small gestures, memorizing lines while commuting, practicing monologues in quiet corners, or refining emotions alone in a hotel room, became critical strategies to maintain a competitive edge. Industry challenges also included managing expectations and ego. Many actors succumbed to arrogance or desperation, losing focus on craft. Denzel, however, remained grounded, drawing strength from his upbringing, mentorship, and self-discipline. He realized that true success was not defined by fame or accolades, but by consistent growth, authenticity, and the ability to transform challenges into opportunities. Each setback, each criticism, became a lesson in patience, humility, and perseverance. Networking and professional relationships emerged as another critical factor. Navigating the industry required connecting with directors, fellow actors, and mentors who could provide guidance and open doors. Denzel approached each relationship with respect, professionalism, and curiosity, recognizing that collaboration and reputation were as vital as talent. He learned to listen, observe, and adapt, understanding that the combination of skill, integrity, and strategy would determine long-term success. By the end of this period, Denzel Washington had transformed industry obstacles into stepping stones. He understood that challenges, bias, rejection, financial limitations, and competition were not deterrents but crucibles, shaping character, focus, and resilience. Each experience reinforced a vital truth. Talent alone is never enough. Success requires discipline, preparation, adaptability, and the courage to persevere in the face of adversity. Mount Vernon's humble beginnings, early performances, mentorship, and personal dedication had all been preparation for this battlefield. Now, confronted with the stark realities of the professional world, Denzel was ready. He had learned to turn every challenge into motivation, every setback into strategy, and every obstacle into a lesson. It was in facing these industry trials that the young boy's extraordinary potential began to crystallize into the extraordinary actor he was destined to become. As Denzel Washington's skills, confidence, and visibility grew, he began to understand that his journey wasn't just about personal success. It was about the impact he could have on others. Even in the early stages of his career, the young boy from Mount Vernon realized that his story, perseverance, and dedication had the potential to inspire those around him, particularly young people facing challenges similar to his own. Inspiration, he discovered, begins with authenticity, humility, and a willingness to share one's journey openly. In Mount Vernon, Denzel often returned to the schools, streets, and community centers where he had first discovered his love for acting. He spent time mentoring younger students, offering guidance on auditions, performance techniques, and the discipline required to pursue a dream relentlessly. His presence alone conveyed a powerful message. No matter where you start, with dedication, focus, and courage, extraordinary possibilities are within reach. He became a living testament to the idea that talent must be paired with hard work, preparation, and belief in oneself. Beyond technical guidance, Denzel emphasized character and resilience. He shared stories of rejection, self-doubt, and the countless hours of practice that preceded recognition. His narrative was candid, infused with emotion, and deeply motivating. Students and peers learned that success is rarely instant. It is built brick by brick, through persistence and the refusal to let setbacks define you. By speaking openly about his struggles, Denzel gave others permission to embrace their own challenges, to understand that obstacles are part of the journey, not a verdict on one's potential. Denzel also inspired through example. Every time he returned to Mount Vernon for small performances, workshops, or community engagements, He carried himself with humility, discipline, and presence. Observers, both young and old, saw a man who had transformed adversity into achievement without losing connection to his roots. He demonstrated that true leadership and inspiration come from consistent action, integrity, and a commitment to growth rather than mere words. Even peers who were initially skeptical of his abilities found themselves drawn to his energy and focus. They witnessed the intensity with which he approached every rehearsal, every audition, and every performance. Through this, Denzel imparted a subtle yet profound lesson. Excellence is contagious. Surround yourself with dedication and purpose, and it elevates everyone around you. His impact rippled quietly but powerfully, planting seeds of ambition, discipline, and courage in the hearts of those who would follow in his footsteps. Mount Vernon became more than a hometown. It became a classroom, a stage, and a proving ground for inspiration. By giving back to his community, mentoring others, and embodying the values that had propelled him forward, Denzel Washington transformed personal success into collective empowerment. He taught that greatness is measured not only by personal achievements, but by the positive influence one has on others' lives. By the end of this stage, Denzel had not only solidified his craft and begun to navigate the professional world of film and television, but he had also embraced the responsibility of inspiring others. Every performance, every mentorship session, every interaction in Mount Vernon reinforced a vital truth. Extraordinary talent is most meaningful when it uplifts, motivates, and opens doors for those who dare to dream. Denzel's journey was no longer solely his own. It was a beacon, guiding countless others to believe in their potential and pursue their own extraordinary paths. Even as Denzel Washington began achieving recognition and inspiring others, failure remained an inevitable companion. Despite awards, early roles, and growing visibility, there were projects that didn't materialize, auditions that ended in rejection, and performances that fell short of his own high standards. But for Denzel, failure was never a stopping point. It was a teacher, a mirror reflecting areas to improve, refine, and strengthen. One particularly memorable setback occurred when he auditioned for a role he had meticulously prepared for. He knew the lines, understood the character, and had poured hours of emotional energy into the performance. Yet, when the call came, he learned the part had gone to someone else. The disappointment was immediate and visceral, the weight of frustration and self-doubt pressing heavily. But Denzel chose not to succumb to despair. Instead, he dissected the experience, analyzing what he could learn, which skills could be sharpened, and what adjustments were necessary for the next opportunity. Failure became a crucible for resilience. Each setback forced him to confront his weaknesses honestly and to embrace the hard work necessary to overcome them. He learned that success is rarely linear. It is a winding path, filled with obstacles that test not only skill but character. The moments of rejection in Mount Vernon, on small stages, and in early auditions had prepared him for this, instilling patience, perseverance, and the discipline to continue moving forward regardless of immediate outcomes. Family and mentors reinforced this perspective. His father's steady voice reminded him, "Every failure is temporary. What matters is how you respond." His mother's encouragement reinforced that mistakes were opportunities for growth, not reflections of inadequacy. These lessons allowed Denzel to view failure as a necessary and invaluable part of the journey, an integral component of mastery, rather than an endpoint. Through failure, Denzel also cultivated humility. Success had a way of inviting pride, but setbacks kept him grounded. They reminded him of his roots, the streets of Mount Vernon, and the countless hours of preparation that went unseen. He understood that talent and opportunity could be fleeting, but character, discipline, and resilience endure. Each failure added depth to his performances, empathy to his interactions, and clarity to his ambitions. Failure also taught Denzel to embrace adaptability. Not every path led directly to success, and some dreams required recalibration, patience, or alternative strategies. By learning to pivot without losing focus, he honed the ability to turn challenges into opportunities. Every setback became a lesson in strategic perseverance, emotional resilience, and the long-term vision required to achieve greatness. By the end of the stage, Denzel Washington had internalized one of the most vital lessons of life. Failure is not a verdict, but a tool. It shapes skill, strengthens character, and prepares one for greater challenges ahead. Mount Vernon streets, early performances, mentors, and initial industry challenges had all contributed to this understanding. Each failure, once embraced, became a stepping stone, guiding him toward the extraordinary career and inspiring life he was destined to build. Denzel's journey through failure transformed him from a talented boy into a disciplined, resilient, and emotionally intelligent performer, someone capable not only of extraordinary art, but of inspiring others to persist, believe, and rise above their own challenges. Failure, he realized, was not the enemy. It was a teacher, and he had learned its lessons well. As Denzel Washington's journey through childhood and early career unfolded, he began to envision not just personal success, but the legacy he hoped to leave behind. The streets of Mount Vernon, the countless hours of practice, the mentorship, the rejection, and the triumphs, all of it coalesced into a profound understanding. True greatness is measured not only by accolades or fame, but by the impact one has on others and the example one sets for the generations to come. Even at a young age, Denzel contemplated the broader significance of his craft. Acting was more than performance. It was storytelling, a means of conveying truth, emotion, and the complexities of the human experience. He realized that the roles he took, the way he carried himself on and off stage, and the dedication he exhibited could inspire countless others to pursue their dreams with discipline, courage, and integrity. This awareness fueled every rehearsal, every audition, and every performance. Mount Vernon remained central to his vision. The community that had nurtured him, challenged him, and witnessed his earliest steps would forever shape his perspective. Denzel understood that his journey had a responsibility attached, not just to himself, but to those who had believed in him, those who faced similar challenges, and those who would follow in his footsteps. By committing fully to his craft, maintaining humility, and embracing resilience, he could model what was possible even for those from modest beginnings. Denzel's early understanding of legacy also intertwined with purpose. He envisioned using his growing platform to inspire, to educate, and to uplift. Whether through mentorship, sharing personal experiences, or demonstrating the power of perseverance, he recognized that influence is a responsibility. Every role chosen, every interaction, and every effort toward excellence was an investment in a legacy that extended beyond personal acclaim. His vision for the future was ambitious, yet grounded. He dreamed of opportunities to challenge himself with complex characters, stories that resonated deeply, and performances that could move audiences emotionally and intellectually. Beyond personal achievement, he sought to foster an environment where talent, discipline, and integrity were valued, where young actors could be nurtured, and where the transformative power of storytelling could be fully realized. By the end of this formative period, Denzel Washington had cultivated not only skill and recognition, but a profound sense of purpose. He had learned from rejection, drawn strength from mentorship, honed his craft through relentless practice, and embraced failure as a teacher. These experiences laid the foundation for a life dedicated not just to acting, but to inspiring others, leaving a legacy that would ripple far beyond the stages and screens he graced. The young boy from Mount Vernon had transformed into a visionary artist, guided by discipline, humility, and an unwavering commitment to excellence. Every challenge faced, every lesson learned, every role undertaken was part of a carefully constructed journey, a journey that promised to leave an indelible mark on the world. Denzel Washington's early years were more than preparation. They were the blueprint of a legacy in the making, a testament to what is possible when talent meets relentless dedication, purpose, and heart. Mount Vernon may have been humble, the challenges formidable, and the path uncertain, but through vision, perseverance, and integrity, Denzel was crafting a story that would inspire generations, proving that greatness is not inherited. It is earned, nurtured, and shared. As we follow Denzel Washington's journey, from the humble streets of Mount Vernon to the bright lights of television and film, several useful English expressions and phrases emerge naturally. For example, when we say face-to-face with challenges, it means confronting obstacles directly without avoiding them. Denzel was constantly facing challenges, whether it was self-doubt, rejection, or industry bias. Another useful expression is turn setbacks into stepping stones, which means using failures as opportunities to grow, a key theme in Denzel's story. Notice how we also describe his preparation as relentless dedication. Relentless here emphasizes persistence, without giving up. Words like resilience, the ability to recover from difficulties, mentor, a wise and trusted guide, and humility, staying grounded despite success, are essential English vocabulary that describe personal growth and character. Throughout the story, phrases like rise above fear and embrace failure are idiomatic expressions that convey courage and the proactive mindset needed to overcome obstacles. When we say someone is grounded, like Denzel remained, it means they stay humble and connected to their roots. You can apply these phrases in everyday conversation to describe personal effort, learning experiences, or challenges in your own life. By understanding these expressions in the context of Denzel's story, you not only improve vocabulary, but also learn how to naturally incorporate inspirational language into your speech and writing, helpful for presentations, essays, and even motivational conversations. Discipline beats talent without effort. Consistent preparation and dedication, like Denzel's hours of rehearsal and study, create the foundation for long-term success. View failures as lessons, not endpoints. Every rejection, mistake, or setback is a step toward improvement if approached with reflection and resilience. Mentorship is invaluable. Surround yourself with people who guide, challenge, and inspire you to reach higher. Inspire through action, not just words. By embodying hard work, humility, and perseverance, you influence others more profoundly than any speech ever could. Stay grounded while aiming high. Ambition is important, but remembering your roots and remaining humble ensures sustainable, meaningful success. Denzel Washington's journey teaches us that greatness is not reserved for the privileged. It is earned by those who face fear head-on, practice relentlessly, and embrace every challenge as a chance to grow. From the streets of Mount Vernon to the world stage, he proves that your beginnings do not define your destiny. Your courage, discipline, and belief in yourself do. Let his story ignite a fire within you, to persist when others doubt you, to rise above fear, and to dedicate yourself to the craft of your life. Today, as you take your next step, remember this. Every setback is a lesson, every effort counts, and every small action builds the legacy you were born to create. Rise, persevere, inspire. The world is waiting for your story.